So yeah, the perks of not doing video, like we are now, is essentially if somebody does have to get up, I have to kind of edit around that,
Yeah.
and try to trim it out. But so the way I do my process is I'll usually edit the audio first, and then import the audio into Premiere, and then try to match up exactly like the video audio with the
Yeah.
recorded audio, and then I kind of have to see exactly where it's kind of guesstimating the cut that I made in Audition. And
Yeah.
so I have to do like a freeze frame to make it look like a glitch to cut around that little cut.
I heard that's how they made that one movie. What was the John Cho one?
Oh, Searching?
Searching, where they were saying like, oh yeah, whenever we did cuts and stuff, luckily there's glitches that are in, Zoom calls or whatever. So yeah, we just do a little glitch or whatever and it's fine. Just a little static frame for a second.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
That's what the editor said, because they have to obviously edit some of the dialogue to make sure they're keeping the pace right or fixing a mistake or whatever. But yeah, that's exactly how they do it. So
oh my gosh, that's fun. Did you like Searching by chance?
I did. I felt like if M. Night Shyamalan made a little, Zoom call thriller, whatever it is, Sundance film.
Yeah, I liked it. I haven't seen what's it called, the Blumhouse one, the Friends. What do you call
Unfriended?
Unfriended, yeah. And then they came up like the second one, like the Dark Web. I haven't seen those, so I wasn't really familiar with the format.
Dark Web, but dude, if you ask me what Unfriended was about, I saw it in the theater and it's about a ghost. That's all I got, really. The kid put his hand in a blender in a part of it. I remember that. That's about the extent of it.
Was it pretty graphic?
I don't remember it. It's Blumhouse. It's whatever,
It's a hit or miss.
Yeah, it's kind of, so, like it's probably somebody a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, I kind of admire Blumhouse for that. I don't know. It seems like they kind of just like to make movies, and they do it for such a low budget. Like they always get a return.
Exactly. I think obviously Jordan Peele's their bread and butter, and like everything he makes, like he can make a serious movie and it can be good.
Yeah.
But I think they work best when they're a little more campy, like the Happy Death Day stuff. I think that that tends to work best for them. But when they're doing like little gimmicky things, I don't know. That's where like the Truth or Dare or whatever, that's I think where they struggle most.
Oh, dude, that one was awful.
I didn't even finish it. I was like, God damn it! And I just turned it off. Like.
I don't often hate watch stuff. That's one I actually ended up hate watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare. It's rare I see something that's outright awful, but also there is a thing where it's like I just lose my attention, loses it, and I'm like, I'll turn it off for one reason or another, and I just don't feel the urge to turn it back on.
Yeah, I saw there's one that got critically panned that I kind of liked. It's the Gallows. About the
I saw the world premiere of The Gallows at Comic-Con.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
What was the general reaction?
The people there liked it, and I remember just feeling like, for the found footage thing had been done to death at that point.
Yeah,
but it was still like it was fine. Like, was it my favorite? No, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I think I liked that one a lot though, because I in high school I did I was part of the stage crew for plays and stuff, and just the way they kind of used the whole background of a stage and like up in the catwalks, dude, there's some creepy stuff in catwalks if you have to like go up there during a show when it's pitch black.
Oh,
you know what I
mean? I am terrified of heights. Like just the idea of climbing a ladder is a near-death experience for me. So like whenever I see you fools up there climbing around, I'm like, what are you doing? It's always, and it's like little 14, 15-year-old kids up there in high school, like they're going to die.
Yeah. We don't have freaking, stuff like hooked onto the rails to catch us if we fall. Like the safety is not really a huge concern in high school.
Cedar High is not Broadway.
No, it is not. But it's funny though, because whenever we had to go up in the catwalks, we used to play pranks on each other where we would kind of go in the prop closet and find a mask and a cloak, and somebody would be up there hiding, man. And I have you seen Darkness Falls?
Oh yeah, the Tooth Fairy thing.
Yeah, it's not a great movie, but like the way, like her mask that she wears with the cloak, I mean, that's essentially what whoever dressed up like looked like. And that movie terrified me then. So seeing this movie kind of try to attempt that, I'm like, man, that was kind of fun.
Yeah. And that's how horror movies, the history of horror movies have been, is like take a really niche-y thing like, hey, let's have it be about the behind the scenes of a play or whatever, and make a gajillion horror movies based on that. And that one's very specific about stagehands themselves. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's have you introduce you so we can actually put a voice or a name to the voice in this case, since we're not doing video.
Sure. This is Jeff Sanders. I'm a filmmaker. I am a festival director for Horror Fest International. I'm a technical director for Desertscape International Film Festival, and I just did a lot of random things in my life. So if you want to know about movie theaters and projection or how to make wood-fired pizza, I'm your guy.
So I vaguely remember, I think it was sometime over the summer, I posted about, I believe it was Batman Begins, and you had commented on my post saying that you worked at the theater during its theatrical release. How was that? Like, how has theaters changed from then to like now?
Oh man,
aside from COVID.
Sometimes before COVID, I mean, it's a little sad. When I first started, I live in Cedar City, Utah. Town's got 30 some odd thousand people in it. We had an 8-screen theater, the Stadium 8. We had a 6-screen, the Fiddler 6, and we had a 2-screen dollar theater, the Cedar Twin. Right now, we have, and after a while, we got rid of the Twin, which was it's a beautiful theater. It's still there. It's a shame that no one's using it. And then we went down to Fiddler 6 and Stadium 8. Then they sold off the Fiddler 6, and I hear they're not even doing movies there currently. And we just have the Stadium 8. And currently, with COVID, the Stadium 8 is only open Tuesdays for their $5 discount day, Fridays and Saturdays, 4 through 9. And even without the 4 through 9 Tuesday, Saturday thing, just the fact that we keep whittling away at movie theaters, it kills me a little bit. I worked there before digital, when everything was film. And I don't know, there's something a bit more special about it, I feel.
Yeah, there's a Disney movie, I think it's called Phantom of Megaplex. It's like one of those old horror ones.
Yeah.
They use film projections in that, and they have like a scene where the guy's fixing it, and that movie kind of got me interested in maybe working at a movie theater in high school, and this is before everything went digital, obviously. Then when I was in high school, I was in 10th grade, I think in 2009, 2010. So that's when everything kind of went digital. So it's just, I didn't have the experience of working with film, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I started the theater in 2003. So I had, I became the projection manager for the southern region originally it was West 8's theaters, then it was sold off to Megaplex. And I would, train all the kids up here, and then I'd train people in St. George every now and then. But yeah, I mean, the film thing, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot more care that went into it, where you physically had to be up there. You had to make sure the machinery was working correct. You had to make sure every time you hit that start button, something different would happen. You'd have, a film break. You'd have audio issues all the time. You'd have, I mean, it goes through a whole system of rollers and turning things and things, and so something comes loose if you're not paying attention. Yeah, I mean, there's terrifying things that happen called like tail wraps, where the end of the movie, the tail of the movie gets pulled in to the concurrent part playing, and so it tries to kind of fold itself inside out real hard. And so the whole thing just kind of cracks and breaks on the projector. And then you have to disassemble the whole thing, pull the whole print, usually put it on the floor, disassemble it. You have to find some part where you're like, I know this is the beginning. And I know, if I pull from whatever this is, I can connect it back together. And, 3 or 4 hours later, you'd have the movie back together. And so, yeah, that's a worst case scenario if things went wrong. And brain wraps were when it goes through this roller thing on the system that has an arm that moves back and forth, and depending on where the arm is saying how fast that platter needs to spin. So the film is keeping current with where it's supposed to be, and occasionally you'd have where it'd stop working, or you'd wrap around something incorrectly, and so it would spin too much, and then it would wrap around the brain. And you'd have to figure that out. And those could be pretty nasty. Not as bad as a tail wrap. And yeah, they take quite some time to take care of. But if you're paying attention, those are very rare occurrences. So
yeah, I kind of had this misconception. It was actually I remember the movie I was in when the thought kind of came to me. It was during the Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Ron Howard's. I remember looking behind that. I remember looking behind me and looking up near the projection area and seeing an employee up there. Because that's during the film age, obviously, or the print age. But being up there, were you able to stay up there the whole time and watch the movie? Was it like a free screening essentially? Yeah,
it was better for you to just stay up there. The thing is, it's so noisy up there. You have a little monitor that you listen on where you kind of turn up to hear, but you really, with all the noise around, you can't hear that well. But yeah, sure. What you'd usually do is you'd pick little pieces of whatever movie you're kind of interested in to watch, and then every 15 minutes or so kind of do your rounds to make sure everything is still looking okay. And then you go back to, if you're interested in that one, or you want to hop over to something else, which was kind of fun because back then, sometimes there was movies that would, you'd get 2 or 3 new movies a week, and some of them would be, things you had absolutely no interest in. And then you would, kind of start watching, you go like, what the hell? This isn't bad. Or you'd be like, this is heinous. I remember the first time, because I heard Tyler Perry wasn't, oh man, his movies are making all this money, and we got Diary of the Mad Black Woman. And so I don't know what I was expecting. Now we all know what Tyler Perry does, but at that time I thought I was going to see some really dramatic, nuanced, stuff. And instead I saw a Tyler Perry movie. I was like, what the hell is this? The woman's crying about, being molested by her father, and then the next scene is a slapstick thing with Tyler Perry, and he's using a chainsaw to cut a couch in half, and you're just whoa. Fascinated with it ever since then. But yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of things where you'd kind of give something a shot that you normally wouldn't. But yeah, fun days.
On Tyler Perry, I actually revisited Gone Girl, and I forgot he's
good in it too.
Yes, he is. So I just know, seeing his performance in that and watching his other movies, I'm like, man, you do have talent. Just you put your talent elsewhere.
I'm surprised he put up with David Fincher's 40 to 80 takes that he likes to do. Because I feel like one of Tyler Perry's things is knocking out a movie quick on a.
Yeah.
Just because to work on a Fincher thing, man, that takes patience to deal with.
Especially because this kind of relates to digital and film, because Fincher is heavily digital now. He's a huge advocate for it. I think it's fascinating, how many takes you can actually do on digital, but I also think it's kind of really.
Yeah, well, and I mean, there were guys like Michael Cimino back during Heaven's Gate that was doing the same thing, where you hear that bullwhip scene with Chris Christopherson where he wakes up and the the woman comes in and he doesn't know who it is. So he grabs the bullwhip and he whips, she has something in her hand and he like whips it straight out, and how they had to film that like all day and give it like 100 takes in film just to get it. And, you know, when you watch it in the movie, it's seamless. You're like, whoa, that's crazy. You know, Asian people, of course, that Jackie Chan bag mitten. Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
Where he does that one shot thing where he leaps across the room and he kicks the badminton and it shoots across and makes a goal. And it's evidently the one shot that took the most takes of all time. It took weeks for them to get it.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's crazy if you ever see it. Just, I mean, especially because like you'd think it wouldn't be that, but it's just this really technical. They're bouncing this badminton. It's not badminton. It's something where they're kind of hitting a birdie around with their feet and stuff. And then they knock it back and forth for goals. And
YouTube this.
Yeah. If you can find that, I heard Tarantino talk about it one time and I was like, well, and I looked it up and I was like, holy moly. Like,
well, I mean, of course, Tarantino would talk about it because it has to do with kicking and feet.
Yeah, kicking feet and Asian things.
Sounds like a Tarantino formula.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, what got you into film from the beginning?
I don't even know. I mean, it's just one of those things where I've been into film since I was really, really little. Like I can remember watching movies like Witness and stuff when I was like 8, maybe 7, you know, which would have been early 90s. And just being like, wow, that's a really good movie. You know, something that like it would normally go over, I think, a kid's head, but I had patience for it. I thought it was cool stuff. And, you know, initially, you know, I saw Jaws and like Big Trouble in Little China, and those movies just like blew me away where I'm like, this is so cool. And so I got really into like horror and action and films and things like that. So I've always been into schlocky stuff kind of throughout my whole life. But then a bit later on in the 90s, I remember watching, what's the Bergman movie? Virgin Spring, the one that Last House on the Left kind of ripped off. And I just remember like being so enamored by that film and just shocked at how violent it got, especially because it was like a black and white movie. It's like, whoa, he killed a kid, you know, like that's crazy. He picked him up and busted him against a wall. And then at the end of it, like Bergman's such a good filmmaker that at the end of the movie, I'm like, I know those guys, you know, they did a bad thing to his daughter, but I feel like what he did was really bad too, you know? And it's like, you know, Bergman even could get me at like 10 years old. I understood what he was going for. And, you know, so I've always loved movies since I was really, really little. Once I was a teenager and I could rent movies, and my brother Tyler especially was really into, actually all my brothers are into movies. My brother Tyler had a really big collection of movies, and I'd try to just watch something every day almost, you know. And pretty much for the past 20 some odd years, I watch on average probably a new to me movie, like every day. You know, some days I don't, but then I'll have a day where I might watch 3 or 4, or I might be at a film festival where I watch a bunch, like Sundance or something. And so, yeah, do that for 20 years and there's a lot that's in my head, and I forget about some of them too, but yeah, that happens.
If only they had a letterbox then, so you could log all your movies and see what.
I know, when I think about that, I mean, social media is just intimidating enough where there's just so much of it. You know, I still don't completely I hardly use Instagram. I understand it pretty well, but I still like kind of don't understand it, where I'm like, yeah, just hashtag things. I guess it connects. I don't know anything about the algorithms or whatever, but it's, you know, like, so like Letterboxd is this other thing of just like archiving this and that, but I wouldn't even know where to start, because before Letterboxd, I would get the Leonard Maltin movie book. Do you remember those?
I don't remember those.
I'd get the Leonard Maltin movie books. I'd get the, Mick and Marcia Porter movie books, where they're these giant movie Bibles, and you would just click through, like, this movie got 3 stars, It's like, what's All About Eve? And you just, and I would just flip through pages. Oh, that one got 5 stars. What is it? Or in Leonard Maltin's, it's a 4-star review. So that's a 4-star movie. What is it? And then you'd read about it, and then you'd be curious about it, and then you'd watch it. I think that's how, I think people who are older than the millennial people who can look it up on the internet, like, that's what they would do. But also people that weren't old enough to have actually seen them when they came out. Because, like, my friend Adam, he's older than me, and he can just tell you, like, oh yeah, I saw that because he was older and he lived in Burbank, and he can be like, oh yeah, I saw that back in 1972 or whatever, because he went to the movies every week, and that's just how he got his film backing.
I mean, I'm speaking, like, going to movies younger. So movie tickets have changed quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
And now they're just like basic receipts in a lot of theaters, which kind of saddens me, because I used to collect movie tickets and, like, kind of play them everywhere,
I do too. I still have, like, old Sundance movie tickets that had like little metallic looking foily things going on, where I'm like, wow, it's just such a pretty ticket, Or, even when I worked at the movie theater, we went from having cardstock actual physical movie tickets, and then we went half cardstock, half sort of receipt paper. And then we went to receipt paper, and we've kind of stuck with that now. But now, I mean, heck, there's even where you just scan your phone and just walk on in,
Yeah, it's kind of sad. And
you kind of forget about it. Yeah, because you forget about the precious things, like that meant something, that I went there and it meant something for me to keep this. And now it's still a memory. And so it's not like that's taken away, but sometimes you don't have that retrieval of that memory when you open up that box and you look in there and you go, oh yeah, that's when I saw, like, I mean, for me, I have a million in there. I can, like, that's when I saw Crispin Glover's It's Fine, Everything is Fine. That was my first Sundance movie, which I don't recommend anybody watching. Anybody that doesn't like really, really obscure art film, disturbing stuff with disabled people nudity. So
I think the last film I watched of his that I can remember was Ruben and Ed.
Yeah, that's the stuff Trent, he did with Trent Harris. Yeah,
yep.
and so It's Fine, Everything is Fine. He filmed that in Utah. He's the writer and director of it, and yeah, he cast a guy that was living in a care center that he'd used in a previous movie to be in it. And I can remember all the conversation and everything just by bringing it up again. But yeah, it's weirder than Ruben and Ed, if you can believe it. So, I miss Trent Harris movies. His Beaver trilogy, I think's some of the finest independent movies, like avant-garde independent, just completely doing it on your own stuff.
Have you talked with Trent before?
No, I've never met him, but I'm interested in him, and I know he doesn't like talking about the Beaver trilogy either.
So I actually had the pleasure of having him as a screenplay professor up at the U.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, he is such a very charismatic, interesting guy.
I can imagine.
He loves the process of filmmaking, and he loves stories that are just so obscure. And
yeah,
he loves telling stories, and I think he's such a cool guy. Like, if you ever get to meet him, like, you should.
Yeah, you can tell with him. I miss those old guys like him that are more like John Waters or whatever, that they're like, they are weird, like, I make weird movies. I acknowledging, like, a lot of times these days, it's like, I made a weird movie, but I really want you guys to watch it. Where some of those guys, I feel like I made the weirdest thing, to hell with you all, and I think Trent had some of that, but man, he made like the Breeder trilogy especially is just so individually that. And Ruben and Ed has the same thing too, where you watch it and you're just like, if you say Ruben and Ed, people either, they don't say, oh no, I think I saw it or whatever. It's like, no, they go like, yeah, my cat can eat a watermelon. And
yeah, the scene that sticks out to me the most in that is him drinking the cooler water from the dead cat.
Oh man, it's so weird.
It is. The thing though is, like, during that class, he actually graded us. Like, he'd give us little assignments every week to kind of go out and experience, like, the keys to experience and to write about the experience, right, or draw inspiration from it. Mm-hmm. And he would force us to go to, like, the weirdest art exhibits or, like, whatever was going on. It's like the most spontaneous thing ever, and just to go do it. And if we did not do it, it would actually be docked. And so his approach is very fascinating, and he's definitely a professor I remember very fondly. So
that's good. I love hearing that.
Yeah, I seriously, if you ever get the chance to meet him, definitely would recommend it. But that kind of ties into festivals though, because like what year did you go to your first festival?
First movie festivals, I mean, so the first Sundance I went to was the one I just said, where it's fine, everything is fine. I saw the movie Fido. Well, what year was that? It must have been like 2007, 2008 was the first time I did like Sundance. And I'd done local festivals. You know, there'd been Eclipse Film Festival and things like that, which would have been early 2000s, like around 2000, 2001. So I can remember those, but the first like big festivals would be probably like around 2007, 2008. That's where I would do. So started going to Sundance, Comic-Con, CinemaCon, all that stuff. There was a great one called Cinevegas that I wish still existed.
Cinevegas?
Yeah, it was put on by the same guys that did Sundance, but it was, you know, a few months after. And so a lot of the same movies, if you didn't catch them there, would go there. The filmmakers, everybody likes going to Vegas, so they'd still show up. Dennis Hopper was the master of ceremonies, and you could buy tickets. You could literally just go before the movie, and you could, I want to go to that. Yeah, there's still seats in there, and everything would be mostly full, and occasionally sell out, but you could get into everything. So good crowds, so cool. But you could get in. Or Sundance. Have you been to Sundance?
I've been once in 2019, the beginning of 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go that year. It's a zoo. It is a zoo, and it's a lottery to get in. I mean, you can do the wait list thing, and you have to do the wait list thing unless you spend $2,500 a week on a package.
Yeah, we got lucky.
And sometimes you get in, sometimes you don't. You can also do the thing where you wake up really early and you try to get to that box office, or you just sleep in line, which I have done many times with Adam. Adam is all about sleeping in line, and and it's rough, but that's what you have to do to go there. And so when you go to those awesome festivals, like what used to be called the Stanley Film Festival, which was at the Stanley Hotel
that's cool,
in Estes Park, Colorado. And it was now called the Overlook Film Festival, which is still an awesome festival. But man, when it was at the Stanley Hotel, such a good festival, awesome people there, awesome movies, and you could get into everything. And I got in as press, luckily. So I didn't even I just had to buy a hotel, and drive out there, which from where I am is like 9 hours away, but that's doable. Like if you want to do it and you want to experience that. So I got to experience that several years. It's such a good festival. I like it more than Sundance. It doesn't exist anymore. It's now Overlook and it's in New Orleans, which is a little more inconvenient.
just a little bit.
Just a little. I've been there, but it's in the French Quarter, dude. Have you ever been to New Orleans?
I have. We took a cruise in that area before, and we had to stay a couple nights in New Orleans. And yeah, we kind of explored Bourbon Street, and it smelled like shit at 9:00 in the morning.
Oh, it smells like shit all day, every day. Because, especially after Hurricane Katrina, I don't blame them for this, but everything washed up, so like sewage and everything hit everything, and it's humid all the time. So in the morning when the humidity starts rising from everything, it just has this kind of bitter, pukey smell that kind of overtakes everything. And you get used to it after a while, but not great. But yeah, it's getting through the French Quarter is so convoluted. You have to do it on foot. And it's a hassle. New Orleans is a bit of a hassle. I like it. I love the aesthetics of it. I had very pleasant experiences going there, but yeah, there was a lot of when I was there. I guess I have bad memories. I was just lugging around gear all day, every day, because I was filming some stuff, and it was. When I think of going to the Overlook Festival there, I'm like, ooh, no, I gotta carry the Pelican cases.
Oh no. Yeah,
I got a homeless guy following me, and he's heckling me. He wants money.
Yeah, well, so my parents went
it's
there.
The least of worries, but it's just another thing.
Yeah, my parents went there years before we did, or I guess a family for the cruise, and the thing they told us was to pretty much put our wallets and stuff in our front pockets and to always feel for them, because there's a lot of looting that goes on there. But dude, it's such a unique place though. Like, I don't regret going there at all. I didn't have a bad experience, and we even took like a ghost tour. Which is fascinating in itself, I thought, and just learn about the history of New Orleans. And we went in couple of the churches there, and dude, the architecture especially is just so.
Yeah, it's a super cool place. It's expensive.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, I guess that's another thing too. It's just like I'm not a rich person, so to drop $500 on plane tickets to stay at a French Quarter hotel that's $150 at least a night for 3 or 4 nights, and every time you're eating out, you're eating at some boutique place that's like $20 a plate, and you're like, whatever, this is the only option. And it costs way too much. You got to be able to, and you got to buy, if you're going to the festival I'm talking about, you got to buy tickets and stuff too. So you're talking about dropping at least $2,000 to $3,000 just on a weekend. So I don't know, if you make that kind of money, it's a super fun time, and I recommend it. But if you're like me, it's like, I need to buy another. I'll buy another camera, maybe. That way I can make money.
Yeah, I didn't pay for the tickets for Sundance. Somebody gave them to my dad, and he couldn't make it, and so he gave it to me and my friends, and that's how we ended up there. Yeah, but
I've had some good experiences at Sundance too, where I've been like, oh man, I want to get into that movie, and there's that good Samaritan that walks out that bought some big pass or bought extra. He's like, you trying to get in? You're like, yeah. It's like, here you go, and just hands it to you, and you're like, what?
Yep.
I've had that happen a few times. Although one of the times was to watch a movie called Hound Dog, which I don't recommend. So, but still, it was free. Good on that guy, whoever you are.
Yeah, the movie I watched was a very obscure art house film about this kid who would basically have wet dreams about transsexuals, and it was. It was an interesting experience.
Sundance movie.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting myself. And that's the thing, is that you walk in blind. So, it's either it's going to be great, or it's going to be interesting, or it's going to be bad. This was interesting. Yeah. It wasn't like bad, but it was interesting.
Yeah. My first was that Crispin Glover movie, and you're watching this thing with this disabled people in it, and mentally, physically, he had, cerebral palsy really bad, so he's really hard to understand. And then in the middle of the movie is this really graphic sex scene, unsimulated stuff, and you're like, holy shit, like oh boy. Jeff, what have you gotten yourself into? And whatever you do, don't tell people about it. And here I am.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too, because at Sundance, it's not always that the filmmakers will be there, to answer questions afterwards. But this one actually had Jeff Goldblum in it, and he actually made a little speech before the movie started.
Was it The Mountain?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like that guy's movies. Alverson.
Yeah, and he's actually a really smart guy, and he did the Q&A afterward.
Yeah, he's cool. Did you see the comedy And
I haven't seen any of his other stuff. I knew, like, I did some research on him before going in, and like, it's either you love it or you think it's okay, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. His movies are.
Decisive.
Yeah, his movies are good. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I was trying to think of if I do the movie, but then as soon as you said Jeff Goldblum, it all came together.
Yeah, and he's like doing lobotomies and shit. It was a very interesting movie.
Yeah, a weird slice of life from what's take place in the 1950s, 1940s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting though, because he actually stayed afterward, Rick Alverson, and
yeah.
Yep. And he was very, thorough with like what his intention was. And he's like, look, I understand some people didn't get it. That's fine. Like, I just wanted to make a movie, and this is the movie I made. And so many people, or not so many people, okay, that's an over exaggeration. There's some people who were trying to put so much meaning behind the movie that wasn't even there in the first place.
Yeah.
And it kind of pissed Rick off.
Yeah.
he got in a minor argument with some of the crowd members over them thinking they were right. And he's like, you're not right. Like, that's not what I was going for. And I'm like, this is Sundance. This is a very interesting experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a place where a lot of movies are made and broke,
Yeah.
You have like Hound Dog. Hound Dog was the one I just mentioned, where it was the one where Dakota Fanning, when she was a little kid, probably still like 14, 13 years old, in the middle of the movie, she gets raped and she's saying the N-word a bunch in the movie. Like, it's
holy shit.
It's one of these movies you watch and you're just like, who, like, what? This is, and the thing is, like, it almost comes off as comedy because it's so dramatic. It's so melodramatic with everything.
Uh-huh.
Her dad gets struck by lightning while riding a tractor and he becomes mentally retarded. And you just like who wrote this? Like what? Like, this isn't connecting, guys. This is coming off as unintentional comedy. And you can tell when they game up, there's a few people being polite, but then there's other people kind of asking questions of like, do you feel like this was maybe a bad idea? And she's like, no, do you? And you kind of almost hear everyone in the audience going like, yeah. And so that movie, I remember, wasn't released for several years, and then seeing it pop up on DVD, 10 years or so ago. And that's the last, I mean, you've not heard of it, I don't think. And I think that's the last anyone heard of it.
Hound Dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of that movie.
Yeah. And that's what happens at Sundance, is you have a movie like that come out, and it was, for a moment there, I'm in Sundance, this is going to be the greatest. And, one Q&A later, they're going, oh man, this is bad. And their movie's never heard of again.
Well, and I kind of like what Sundance has done, where it's kind of branched out to the Salt Lake area with like the Broadway and the Tower being used.
That's where some of my favorite screenings are.
Yeah. And I personally, I love the Tower more than the Broadway, just because it has such a cool aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
And it's such a, it's such a culty theater, essentially. Like, if you're going to show like a cult classic film, that's the theater to show it at, but it's interesting though, because like I saw a horror movie there. I think it was another Blumhouse one, if I'm not mistaken. What's it called? I don't remember what it's called, but I thought it was going to be like, out in theaters. And so I was bragging to people like, oh yeah, you should see it when it's out in theaters. And it turns out, no, it's straight to VOD. I was like, damn, like I got excited to talk about this movie. And
the one that really got me with that was, did you ever see, it's pretty big now, but Trick or Treat?
Oh, I love Trick or Treat. Yeah. Michael Dougherty? Is that his name?
Yeah. I saw that at Comic-Con years before it was actually released. And it was one of the first, other than a few film festivals, it was one of the first like public screenings of it. And I saw it there, because we'd heard about it and we heard the cast, and it just seemed like it was going to be cool. We heard early reviews that were cool. We watched it and we're just blown away, like, holy cow. And then year goes by, 2 years go by, and it's like, what? Like, nobody has seen this and nobody knows what it is. And it pops up on direct to DVD, and you just go, what were they thinking? This movie's so cool.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah, that's an annual like Halloween rewatch.
Oh yeah, most people who like Halloween movies consider that one of the, next to Creepshow as far as great horror anthologies.
Yeah, well, and the way the anthologies tie to each other at the end, I think it's very clever and well thought out.
Yeah, he's a good director. I like him. He was there. Brian Cox was there. That was cool.
Yeah, but what I like about these lower budget. There we go. This sounds so awful.
I'm a lower income filmmaker.
Me too. No, the lower budget filmmakers like him or like, Adam Weingart with like VHS.
That's another one I saw at Comic-Con. I saw You're Next there quite a bit before it was actually released. And I have one of the You're Next masks in my little curio cabinet.
Oh shit, dude, I love Your Next. It's such a fun film.
And Weingart handed it to me. So there you go.
The more you know. Well, I like how they're getting recognition too, because they're getting these big studio budgets, right? Like the guy who did Trick or Treat did Godzilla, the second one. Yeah,
Rise of the Monster, King of the
Monsters or something like that. Yeah. And but that's actually a screening. I hate to admit this, but that's a screening I almost walked out on because I was so not happy with it. But I kind of got the sense it has student involvement, right? And then Adam Weingart is attached to King Kong, the new one that's coming out, and it's so cool seeing these lower independent filmmakers get these huge projects, and I think that's
or the guy that did that Kong Skull Island. He was that guy that did Kings of Summer. And
Yep.
Yeah. Seems like a lot of those guys are getting big parts. Or the weird one to me is those guys, the guy and girl that did Captain Marvel. Like I love their movies outside of Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel is nothing like Sugar or Half Nelson. Those movies I watched and I was like, man, they're so good at doing these human stories, and then they make this big special effects thing, and I'm like, huh. I
think it's a studio thing, honestly. Yeah.
I don't blame them. I know they're good I know they're great filmmakers. In fact, I thought their Mississippi Grind was the best movie of whatever year that was. 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
That's on Netflix, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's on Netflix. That's the best Ryan Reynolds performance, and it has that Ben Mendelsohn, who I think is one of the more underrated actors alive right now.
Oh, dude, he is so fucking underrated. I love Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to use the word underrated much, but for Ben Mendelsohn, it's like, unless that guy has an Academy Award soon, like, he's underrated. He's like him. Michael Shannon's kind of the same way too. It's like, give him an Oscar. Like he dances circles when acting around everyone he's around. He was in Revolutionary Road in one scene and he wins the movie. Like it's.
Yeah. Like I think it was it this last Academy Awards or the years before that, he was nominated for something, Michael Shannon, and he spent his night at the bar. Like he didn't even go to the show. I'm like, that's such a cool thing.
Yeah. The Woody Allen move, I tell you.
Oh, I love it. But okay, go back to festivals though. Like how have they changed from, like 2007, 2008 to 2019, 2020, pre-COVID? Because I'm pretty sure COVID's going to change a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And make things even harder. They're a lot harder to get into. It used to be you rent a hotel room around the Park City area. You'd find something for an amount where if you split it between 3 or 4 friends staying there, you're only spending 20 or so bucks a night. And, that's doable. And the tickets were only $10, $15 back when I would go. Now the tickets are $25. Good. It's so hard to get into things. The last year I went 3 or 4 years ago, I mean, I was only getting into, using the same technique that I got into the majority of films before, I was only getting into 1 out of every 3 movies. And when you stand in line for 3-4 hours, for one movie, don't get in and then do it a second time in the same day. By the end of that day, you're just like, what am I doing here? Like I'm freezing, and what's the point?
Yeah. Do you like? So yeah. Well, do you like having the festivals where it's constant Q&As right after the fact, or do you kind of like to watch one movie and then go to the next movie right away?
I think Q&As are enlightening. I think it's an honor to be able to have remembered, the words directly from the filmmakers or the actors' mouths, clarification, things like that, or just an overall interesting experience where you're like, oh, that was, like he brought something up that I was not aware of, or that guy is an absolute prick and I did not know that. There's always something to glean from a Q&A.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching a movie called Thirst by Chan-wook Park, the guy who made Old Boy.
Okay.
And I remember just being like, one of the biggest parts of this, or Bong Joon-ho at Comic-Con, same kind of thing. Like, I just want to hear them talk. These guys are great. They're from Korea, so I don't know how much they're going to be here. At least at the time, I didn't think they'd be overtaking the Oscars. But, I remember being like, this might be my only chance to ever see these guys in person. And so I'm going to relish in every moment I hear them talk. And they're full of humor. And, both Park Chan-wook and Bong Joon-ho, they're those guys are a riot to listen to. They're kind of like, remind me almost of like Guillermo del Toro, if you've ever seen him live.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like they're like that, but the Korean equivalent of it, just so much fun. And if you're into filmmaking at all, I mean, you got to watch those guys' stuff and
even
be enamored.
Yeah. Even Bong's acceptance speech during the 2020 Oscars.
Yeah.
It was so raw, dude. Like he didn't even expect that. You know what I mean? And just seeing his reaction and seeing his love for the trophy and just the excitement of in the moment,
being genuinely appreciative and also having a humor about what they do, where you can tell they take it very seriously. They want to make something great, but they're not so seriously that they're not afraid to, make fun of themselves a little bit, and just great things that, you had to stick around for the Q&A to listen to. And, I love Q&As. I love all the people I've been able to see in person and listen to, to know like, oh, I heard that from Steve Buscemi's mouth. I heard that from, whoever. There's so many of them.
Yeah. So at your festivals, then, do you do Q&As after screenings? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, everything that I'm saying, I almost always go with Adam and John to these festivals. And so we're bringing back all of that, all of our Sundance, all of our Stanley, all of our Cinevegas, all of our CinemaCon, Comic-Con, whatever. We're bringing all of that back to Desertscape, or attempting to. And I think we do a pretty good job. We do Q&As. We really try to make it filmmaker centric and give ourselves enough time where if the audience wants to ask 10 minutes of questions after a short film, they can. And we love the Q&As. We love having visiting filmmakers. We try our best to figure out some way to get them out here. And for sure.
And so how did these festivals get started? Like when did they start, and kind of how have they grown?
You just do them. I mean, Desertscape's on year 3 right now, and Adam and John had been kicking around the idea of starting it for, several years, and I remember hearing them, call me up and say, we're doing it. It's like, okay, when? 3 months. And we're like, all right. and you just do it, and you make all the promo materials for it. You watch everything. You give it your all, and you hope for the best. And luckily, even right out the gate, we were having a very good festival. And year 2, which happened this last August, I want to say, was crazy fun. Desertscape was super fun. And then Horror Fest, which we were able to put on this last October, I think the 23rd or so. That was our first year of having Horror Fest be an international film festival. It did exist. Horror Fest itself has existed for 18 years. Adam started it, but it's been primarily just a film showcase for Halloween movies. And then we incorporated 15 years ago the Guerrilla Filmmaking Challenge, which is just, for locals only. And they're giving a theme and a time limit and, just a few small rules, 5 minutes, and they make a movie and then they all bring it back. And we show it in the middle of Horror Fest, plus a bunch of classic horror movies. And that's how Horror Fest was up until this last year, where we still do that. And then we added on an actual international film festival onto it. So it's really grown. And that was a lot of fun.
That sounds exciting. It's always challenging to do the guerrilla filmmaking. I mean, like the 48-hour film festival, right?
Yeah, we give ours 2 weeks.
You give yours 2 weeks? Okay.
Yeah, we try to make it a little easier so we're not stressing them out. Because if we don't have the time limit, like, give them 2 weeks to work on it. Like, we get great stuff. We've had professional filmmakers enter, and everyone has a blast. Sometimes you're watching someone's first movie. It's a grab bag. You're watching someone's first movie, and it's really not polished, but it's really raw. So there's something kind of special about that. It might drag a little, but it's 5 minutes. You can live through it, and you see that. Or sometimes you see someone's first movie and it was wonderful. And sometimes you see somebody that's been doing it for, the past 15 years every single time, like my friends Brandon and Lonnie, and they just always pulling out a good one every single year. And then there's actual professional people that'll pop up in them this last year, like Ben Hurst, who pretty successful commercial director.
That's cool.
Yeah, just fun stuff. You always get something interesting at Guerrilla. It's always a packed house too.
So,
and we get a lot of filmmakers from up north. You guys should try doing it. This last year we had, who have we had? We've had Charlie Amstone enter from up there. I gotta think. I gotta be better with names of everybody up there. But we get a bunch of filmmakers from up there entering, and they do great. They're part of the team, once you enter.
Yeah, there's a lot of great filmmakers up here. I know the film festival up here that's closest is probably the Utah Film Awards.
Warren Workman. He came to Desertscape first year. He couldn't come this last year, but yeah, we're friends with Warren. We like him.
Yeah, no, Warren's a great guy. He actually, so I met Warren through the Utah Film Group, but I wrote reviews for the films that were being submitted.
Oh, so you've seen some of mine go through.
Yeah, that's actually how I watched yours and Charla's. What's it called?
Glass Cages?
Glass Cages, yes. Yeah. That was one of the worst. That was not worst. That was one of the first films that I had to watch and do the review. And I fucking loved it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that's Lori. Lori, she's this lady who I love that she just said, she came in, she was completely new to town. And for some reason I was the first person that she heard of. And she called me and was like, yeah, I want to do this movie. I'm like, that sounds like stuff that I like. And that sounds like stuff that I do. And I'd like to. And the first movie we did was called Gallop. And the second movie we did together was Glass Cages. And Glass Cages, they both turned out really good. But Glass Cages did really well at the Utah Film Awards. So,
yeah, no, I loved it. No, I seriously loved it. It was actually my first introduction to Charlotte and to you and to, in a way, but also to Lori. And I actually met Lori over Zoom over the summer for some table reads that Landon was putting together.
I love Lori. I love Charla too. Charla she's awesome, and Lori. Lori's like second mom. She's a wonderful person.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of miss writing reviews just because I saw a lot of films. There's some that I had to tell Warren. I'm like, dude, I can't write anything positive. Like as bad as that is. Like
yeah. I mean, that's what we deal with doing Desertscape, where I commend and applaud everybody who makes even a terrible movie.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like good on you. Because you know what? I didn't make a movie last year, but you did. You're a better filmmaker as far as currently than I am.
Yep.
You know? So, you know, good for you for doing it. As far as, is it going to make the festival? Sometimes, sometimes yes, sometimes no, you know, but almost always if they're putting their heart into it and you can tell they were really trying, I'll enjoy the movie. The only times where I feel like this isn't working is when people are making movies because they're trying to make money off of it or something, or they think it'll sell or whatever. They think it's topical or whatnot. And sometimes movies like that can still turn out if they have a good work ethic about them. But sometimes it's people who just, their heart wasn't in it. And those are the only ones that I watch where I'm like, oh, that was rough.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there are some too that were well made, but it depends on the subject matter. Like if it had to do with, you know, like a religious theme of some sort, like I told Warren straight up, like, dude, like I want to give this a fair shot, and like I don't think I'm the one to do that because you know,
yeah. Sometimes that's it. We have one person that does reviews who they are absolutely fantastic, you know, like, but the thing is when stuff has like babies getting hurt in it, they're a parent, just say, I can't watch it. You know, and so they let other people kind of take the reins on it and kind of make the judgment call on it.
Yeah.
And because they're just going to say, I won't like it. I won't watch it. I won't pass it. So for it to get a fair shake, somebody else has to watch this. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of being a human.
It is part of being human, but I appreciate the festival experience that Warren did, because that same year I had my script nominated for best short screenplay or something like that. And it was my first time going to a festival ever. I mean, this is before Sundance.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then the year after that is when we've made my short film, and then that got nominated and won for like best under 500. So
yeah, I was up against you on that one, and I was cool with it. Yeah, but
which project was yours?
How to Be a Good Housewife.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was.
I was actually nervous that was gonna
that was gonna take it.
Yeah, dude, because it was like,
what? Housewife has had a very prestigious and wonderful life since after. It's in a festival right now. Like it still just gets into stuff. I'll just get messages from people every once in a while that say, "Oh, can we please play that?" I'm like, "It's on YouTube. Like, you really want to?" Like, yeah. I'm like, okay, here's the file. And so that movie, it was a great time making it with my friends. I've had just a great time with festivals with it. Yeah. So I mean, I don't ever think of anything with that movie and go like, I wish. It's like, man, how did it? You know, like.
I love it. No,
thank you.
I want to commend you saying that was actually a very good film, and I was very nervous because, you know, there's real talent.
Yeah,
in
of course, and you're also saying it was your first time. Man, I can remember the first few times I was up for stuff, and just how, man, I was so nervous. Like, you get devastated, especially because I've lost stuff. You know, I lose, 99% of the time.
I think all filmmakers do, dude. It's a miracle to win.
Absolutely.
It's like,
and those first
lucky.
Few times you do it, the times that hurt are when you know you're close and you still lose.
Yeah,
that's what hurts, and you're like, oh, I thought I had it, and I didn't, and it hurts, and then you get over it, and then you lose again, and every time it hurts less. Where now it's to a point where I'm like, it's like everything's a pleasant surprise, and if you're acknowledged at all, it's wonderful, you know?
Exactly.
And if you don't get in, it's like, whatever. Next one, you know?
Yeah. It's one thing to be like, even officially selected to have your film shown, you know, that's a huge thing. And it's another thing to even be awarded somehow or be recognized for it by being nominated for that, you know? So dude, anybody who gets a film into a festival though, I think that's a huge pat in the back, because
that's an award.
there's so much fucking competition out there, and it doesn't matter what kind of festival it is. You know what I mean?
The hardest part about being a filmmaker, I think, is that when you're first starting out and you keep submitting to stuff and you've not been into anything and you just feel like this is impossible.
Yeah.
Like I'll never get into anything, and you'll go a year and that movie will never get into a thing. And then you make another movie and that doesn't get into anything. And then you make another movie. And then finally you make something and people go and it gets into something and you're there and people like it. Maybe not everybody, maybe you don't win anything, but it played. And, you just have those small victories along the way. And, here and there I'll have something happen, where I'm like, holy cow, I couldn't, Glass Cages, like that best actress category that Charla won was tough competition. And Lori's the director of that movie, so she deserves the bulk of the credit there. But the fact that I made something that was quality enough to win a category that was that tough is, that's something that just makes me smile, like, oh man, I don't suck, And, and I've won, Kanab Film Festival. I won Best Utah Film 2 years in a row. And both times there were great Utah films there. And I was like, oh. And then I hear my name at the end and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like Housewife won a year or two ago. And then Shiny Shiny won this last year. And just being like, oh man, I'm finally like this feels nice. And I know it's not going to always be that way. And I know that I'm also talking about small potatoes stuff. I mean, Kanab Film Festival is a great international film festival, but I haven't made something that made like much money or anything so far in my life. And so I know in that regard, I'm kind of like small potatoes, but I'll take it where I can get them, and I'm happy about it.
No, exactly. And I think the great thing about these festivals actually, I think, is networking, just meeting other filmmakers and just talking about it, because even after, ceremonies are over, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, because, I only submit to the Utah film, but like, that's the one I only appeared in, but afterwards we kind of all went out and ate. And then, for those who do drink, like we drank, like, because it's in Provo, so like it's kind of like one of those weird is this allowed kind of a thing. But
no, that's you bring up a good point. I was talking to people during the Horror Fest just barely, and they were asking about like where, like the advice of like where you think you started succeeding in things. And what I said was, when I started showing up, whether I got in or not, I'd show up and I'd go to the festival and I'd support. And then I'd understand the movies they were getting in. I could gauge myself and I could go, oh, I was close here, or I was way off. And you can talk to filmmakers, and then people can put a face to a film. And then the next time when you submit something to them, they know like, oh, that's that one guy, or so I think. Because, with being a festival director of Horror Fest or Desertscape, I felt this before too, of people that, just showed up, and hung out with everybody. Yeah. And we're rooting for them. It's not that we weren't before, but we didn't know who you were. And so now we've got a face, and we know the person. Yeah. So I think what you're saying, just, you all hang out afterwards, it happens. It's so important to be part of that.
No, I agree. And even just being there, because like what I've learned was that if like, being at the Utah Film Festival, there's like a lot of local support first and foremost.
Absolutely.
And when these people appear to your film, like it's almost like, oh, they are showing up here. They don't have to show up to the premiere of this, like it's not like they have to, because it's kind of like an early showing or whatever. But then it kind of makes you realize, oh my God, like I need to show up to all theirs and be just as supportive.
Absolutely.
And then especially connecting on Facebook after that and seeing their work after that. Like it's really great networking in that sense, and just kind of growing a small community.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best way to network, and it's just the best way to enjoy what you're doing. Yeah. You can finally meet and talk to people and actually talk about your movie and actually talk about their movie. And that's the filmmaker life. And I'm so grateful that Utah, what Warren has done, what Adam has done. Adam's been doing this for so many years. And I know I've heard him say in the past, like, man, I don't think like people all the time care that I'm doing this. And more people have been showing up the past several years where it's like, yeah, we do care and we love this. And I applaud those people who are putting on these festivals that are a bit more local centric, like Warren, like Adam, and like Jeff Roth. If you don't know Jeff Roth, you should look him up too. He does Kanab, and that guy, he's champion of local filmmaking. He's just a cool guy. I like to say he's a friend. Adam, of course, one of my dearest friends. John, one of my dearest friends. And it's all because of the film scene.
Yeah, well, I think
and of course Warren's a friend too. I just there's a distance between me and Warren a little bit, but Warren's great.
No, Warren's great. He puts it on for the filmmakers essentially, and I think that's such a cool thing to do. But I think another thing, what was I going to go with? Like a thing that I've kind of noticed with like all these filmmakers is that there's so much that goes into it, and there's like a level of being relatable across the board,
Oh yeah.
So I like it. But so now, was the Horror Fest, was that virtual?
No. We talked to our local officials and everything, and we made sure, and we did, we got insurances for everything, and we went through all the health code guidelines. It was tough, we're at best case scenario, you're only a third capacity is what we were basically dealing with. But we said, it's better to do it than to not do it. And the filmmakers who came, they thanked us. And, it's one of those things where between every set, you're requiring everyone to wear masks who are there. Between every set, you are literally sanitizing the whole theater, top to bottom, removing hair, removing micro germs, using UV light technology to kill other microscopic germs. And you just do it. You do it every time. And you're not going to be raking in money for it, but you don't get into filmmaking for the money, and you don't get into, especially like what Adam and John and Warren do, for the money either, where you're doing it to help the community, for the betterment of the community, and for the betterment of just filmmaking in general. And so, it was rough knowing that we're going into this thing and we're not going to make a cent on it, but we gave it our all, and everyone who came had a great time,
So, with the news of Sundance going, was it half virtual is what they said?
Yeah, it's basically what I heard.
Do you think that will open more opportunity for more people to actually have access to it so they can make money back that way? Or do you think there's going to be a lot of drawbacks from that?
That's really hard to know. I think part of the reason people go to those things is to go in person, honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
So I feel like there is going to be a drawback a little bit. Do I blame them? No. And could it give exposure to further reaches? Yeah, it's just hard to know. I really like what my friends at Sin City Horror Fest did, where Shiny just played. They were very selfless about it. They put it on the Kings of Horror. They live streamed the whole festival essentially, so you had to be there to watch it just like a festival. And they had live what's going on through all the movies. And they had where everybody, no matter where you were, could click on YouTube and could go to the Kings of Horror site and watch the whole Sin City Horror Fest lineup. And you could still do the Q&As. You could still do everything as the movie was going and just, mingle with each other. And they did it completely for free, where obviously they were spending a lot of time going through all that, but they didn't charge anybody a ticket value. For Sundance, boy, that's going to be weird. Plus piracy, we had a few filmmakers tell us about their film had already been pirated who played Horror Fest and Desertscape. And they figured it was from online film festivals. Because I was trying to think of, well, is anything ever secure? And I thought about it, and I won't say what I thought of how someone could essentially steal anything if it was streaming. But I thought of a way, and I'm like, I guarantee that would work. Not that I think of stealing things ever, but I was trying to think of, like, if we did our festival partially virtual, could we guarantee that we're safe for the filmmakers? And the fact of the matter is, if it is digital, you cannot guarantee that those filmmakers' movies are not going to be pirated.
Yeah.
It's impossible. If you can have an image and audio come through a screen, then it can be pirated.
Yeah, there's software that easily does that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I like to grab like film grabs, and kind of make like little collages just out of films I'm watching, and or try to find like a certain scene that has a certain dialogue thing or whatever, and it's kind of hard to find exactly that, so you kind of have to like make a meme out of it. But it would be easier just to watch the movie, the subtitles, and take a screenshot. But a lot of these platforms do not allow it at all, period. And they trick your phone or your laptop into just taking a black screenshot. And then I went on Reddit and kind of deep web to see like how exactly people pull it off. And I won't say how either, but like, I'm just like, wow, there is always a way.
Yeah. As long as it's going through digitally, there's a way. There's just, with the way that you can record almost anything using a software or a piece of hardware, there's no way you can guarantee that for filmmakers. And so I'm still a very big proponent of the live screening. Obviously COVID's a worry. So I think right now we're playing the waiting game a bit, but I have faith that COVID will forever and that things will eventually come back to a normalcy. And until then, if we can do third capacity and sanitize the heck out of everything and go buy a bunch of health code lines, then that's what we're going to do, Yeah,
I saw one movie in the theaters during COVID. And
I've seen two, I think. Yeah, I try to avoid. I saw Bill and Ted and I saw Love and Monsters, and I liked both of them.
Oh, I love Bill and Ted. I watched that one on VOD, but the one I watched was Tenet, and it's because I had like an open screening. There's a theater that I live by, and I get off like relatively early in the day, like around 2-ish, 3-ish, So they had a screening there, and like there was only like 2 seats sold across the way, and I'm like, I'm going to do that. But I told myself if more people showed up, I'd have to be okay with leaving, just because you don't know.
Exactly. And theaters are cool right now. If that happens and you're not comfortable, they'll give you your money back.
Yeah,
at least what I've seen and dealt with. But when I saw Bill and Ted, Cedar City's a small town. There were 2 other people in there, as far as who other than my family. And when I saw Love and Monsters, it was in a gigantic theater, and I think there was maybe 12 people in the entire theater of maybe 300 seats. So, not too worried in those cases. But had I gone to a movie and there wasn't, and every seat was sold, I'd be a little worried.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like the only people in the theater I was in was actually an old couple. And they were wearing their mask in between popcorn, which I thought
that's the thing. Cool. Most people are wearing masks and stuff. So if you're worried about going to the theater, don't go.
Exactly.
and that's as simple as it is. But if you look at it and you feel like, I can make this work or whatever, like I'm okay with this, then you can go and it's fine.
Yeah. And I kind of, I have mixed feelings too about the studios pushing to go to the theaters. Because I know they didn't make their money back. And I know with Tenet was definitely like the test. If they could make money back or not. It must be hell
for studios right now. I feel for them. I feel for movie theaters mainly, that's my background. And I just, I'd hate to think of a future where we didn't have them,
Yeah, seriously. And I kind of had this, I don't know if it's a theory necessarily, it's kind of a fun thought where, like, what if, independent cinema, like true independent cinema, because like even Sundance, like, yeah, it's independent, but it's not like independent as it once was,
Or there's a few actual independents scattered throughout a bunch of films starring,
Yeah, and so
Gordon-Levitt and Anna Paquin. Like, it's like, I'm pretty sure I know who John Hawkes is.
Yeah. But I kind of like have this thought. I'm like, well, what if those are the ones to save the theaters and the studios kind of ride on their backs, to get more people in when it's safe to do so.
I think even Spielberg talked about, because I think this is going to happen too. Now that all films don't need to be made through Hollywood, you're going to see a rise of regional filmmaking. And I think you're going to see a lot more regional filmmaking where you're going to have some Utah filmmakers where you're like, oh, it's his new movie, I got to go to that,
Yeah.
And we actually have that here a little bit, especially in the LDS part of the community, but not really in just the general filmmaking community outside of maybe Jared Hess. I think he gets a bit more support, and he makes fun movies. And so I think we are going to see that. We see it a little bit in Utah, but I think we're going to see more of that, and we're going to see where, like a guy like Jeff Nichols who made Mud. He's like an Arkansas filmmaker, and you're going to see more of things like that, people like him popping up.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, I'm excited to see what comes from quarantine personally, just because I know people have been working on stuff like writing and planning for shoots. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes from this, and maybe we'll start like a new film genre, like the COVID new wave.
Yeah, we played several COVID films at our festivals, some made by professional people, or they made a movie with their kids and their wife and their husband, like they're all made it as a family, and you watch it and it's fantastic,
Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's start wrapping this up. What are you accomplishing by pursuing filmmaking as a passion and just keeping the festivals in mind, like running festivals?
I think filmmaking in itself is an important art. I think going to movies is an act of courage sometimes. Like, when you're young and you see maybe a social justice film, like maybe like a Spike Lee film or something like that, you have to say like, okay, I'm going to give this 2 hours of my time, and I'm going to allow myself to be influenced by it. And films do that in a very interesting way. They were for the betterment of my life. I learned a lot of things through movies. I've seen bad examples through movies as well. But I think the whole filmmaking process is important for people. So I kind of mentioned this slightly before, but I think personal filmmaking is very important. And my movies sometimes seem a little horrific or funny or whatever, but they're always about very real things. How to Be a Good Housewife is about a real article that was published in 1955 that was essentially a list of stuff that a woman was supposed to do, which basically, and the movie's just going through the entire list, but kind of parodying it.
Yeah.
And the basic idea of it is, that list is bullshit. And I think that it's important for me to say that, obviously 1950s stuff, most people would think it's bullshit, but to kind of play the list out as it stands, it seems like it's a parody when I'm playing it. It's like, no, that's what it is, you know? Yeah. And so there's always something personal about it. Shiny is odd and funny of a movie as that is essentially about my awkwardness, where I'll talk to people sometimes and I feel so kind of like enthusiastic to talk to them, but then I end up like feeling like I look crazy, like I look like a serial killer, and then just them leaving and I just drop my head and go, oh no. Like, and that's, you know, and I play that movie is just literally that, but it's dialogue free. And so most people watch it just as a straight up comedy because it's funny, and they don't see that there's something deeper behind it. And I'm not saying it's that deep, but there's always something personal behind it. And I think it's important to just continue to make personal films, because, you know, as long as human emotions exist, you know, there's a story to be told. And I think that's an important pursuit for everyone to have. You know, I could do without sometimes all the Star Wars fan films or whatever, but if that's what makes someone happy, I'd rather see them making that than nothing, you know, because it's perhaps important to them.
Yeah, well, and I mean, especially like Star Wars fan films, there's a lot of special effects that goes into that, and I hate special effects. Like After Effects is not my friend, so I admire anybody who can pull that off.
Yeah, I'm open to whatever, but I like practical effects. I like my favorite movies came out pre-90s, 70s. 70s is probably my favorite era, 70s, 60s of films, 70s, 60s, 80s, I'd say. And they didn't have computers back then. and those movies look better, you know. They everything about them looks better. There's obviously garbage ones that pop up here and there, but all in all, a good 70s film looks better, is performed better. The effects are better because they're just slamming a car into something or whatever. You know, they're tossing that person off a bridge. You know, it's really awe-inspiring to watch some of that stuff. But that being said, special effects are fine. I love horror movies. I love, you know, practical special effects there, but mixing practical with compositing and using computers as interfaces, that's fine.
Yeah, I think
I've seen beautiful stuff come out that way.
Yeah, I think the trick with compositing stuff is to make it look seamless. And if it looks seamless and nobody questions it, then you're good, you know. My favorite recent horror film, it's not really recent. I mean, it's probably 8 years now. It feels weird to say that. The remake of Evil Dead, I thought had a lot of great practical effects in it.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the best effects in that movie, like the needle through the eye.
Oh, fuck, dude.
You know how they did the effect, though?
I have no idea.
They just slid the needle back through the fingers as it's going down. You know, it's just a trick.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, like it's practical, and it looks like they stabbed it into something, but no, it's just going back in. But because it's a needle and it's so fine, you can't tell if it's going up or down.
Filmmaking is so magical.
Yeah, exactly. So that movie has a lot of fabulous effects in it, and they used compositing for certain parts of it, but for the most part, they're like, let's make this nasty and, you know, practical. And movie's a lot of fun. I don't know if I like it more than the, you know, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2, or Evil Dead, the original, but I like it. I think they all fit in a nice, happy family.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to compare them by any means at all like that. I think the new one is a fair remake for modern era, to say the least, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That movie had a lot going against it when it was being just the idea of it being made without Sam Raimi or Bruce Campbell. That almost every fan's gonna leave that idea, and despite that guy made a good movie.
Yeah, and then he followed that up with Don't Breathe, which I think is another fine thriller that I can't look at turkey basers the same anymore. So
yeah, it's a nasty movie.
It's fucked. Yes, it is. Okay. What's one piece of advice that has stuck to you throughout the years, and how do you apply it?
I don't know if I function like that. Oh, I got one. I learned from an artist a thing called the 3 H's, which is called head, heart, and hands. And essentially, when you're doing anything artistic, and you can apply it to almost anything, what's the head of the idea? What's the idea of this thing? And that's the most important thing. And then second, what's the heart? You need to know what your tone is. You know, it doesn't mean it has to have heart. It can be soulless or whatever, but you need to know the tone of it. And then your hands are what's the technique you're going to use to bring it about. And if you can clearly define all 3 of those things, you can make something that seems focused and that doesn't seem all over the place and tell a clear story or make a picture that has a statement or a painting or whatever, or a song. And to always remember the 3 H's, I think that's a good one.
That's a fun outlook. I've actually never thought of that.
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah. I mean, my early art career, not career, but high school and everything, I always learned, you know, the most important thing about what your picture isn't how great it looked. It's what does it say? What does it do? What's the idea of it? And how does it make you feel? That's more important than what your actual technique was to do it. So I think it's an important thing. And if you can define those clearly, and if you get good at all 3 of those things, then you can have them kind of working in unison with each other and have it all come together.
Yeah, kind of find the happy balance between all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, Jeff.
Thank you. I'm glad I pulled that. Well, I was struggling with that one. I'm like, what do I got?
No, I think that's a great answer. I'm surprised by that. I'm not gonna lie. That's actually something I've not heard before. So I
heard it from a pretty famous photographer was talking about that. I can't remember his name though.
Fucking photographers.
But I immediately remembered what I learned in high school from an excellent art teacher named Barbara Prestwich, who I don't think I'd be as good as I am right now without Barbara, without Joy Coates, without his name, Michael Bard. Yeah, all 3 of those people, you know, they teach you little things. Another good one I learned as far as like doing something powerful or dramatic or making a statement. And that's that when people are actually saying something with confidence or doing something with confidence, they're not flailing around and screaming and doing all this. They're standing, they're holding their ground, and they're speaking directly. And I learned that about acting because I'm sure I made a shit show of myself a few times acting where I'm like, it's supposed to be intense, and I'm walking around screaming and all this stuff. And my drama teacher just said, probably the strongest thing a character can do is just stand there and speak. And it's like, oh, whoa, like everything makes sense.
Perceptive change, huh?
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know you acted though either. That's cool.
Yeah, man, you don't look them up though, because I always play like weirdos, perverts, or like bad people.
I used to have this fear that if I was to act, if I was going to play the bad guy and like, you know, the bad guy dies at the end of the James Bond movie, like would I actually die in real life?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
intense.
It kind of like scared me away from acting for a bit. I'm not going to lie. That's like 6-year-old Chaz though. So
yeah, no, you can get into weird headspace with that stuff. That's why I don't like playing people that like beat up women or like greasy, you know, it's because I'm overweight and I'm kind of goofy looking, but you know, like because of that and the way that movies work and images work, I'm going to make a career hopefully to move against this typecast, but just, anytime there's an odd looking person, it's like, look at that creep rapist bastard. It's like, it's just a person, and actually they're kind of shy and you hurt their feelings. Like, what's wrong with you? And, but especially Hollywood movie making, and yeah, you'll find yourself in bad stuff. But, I've never acted that much, but when I have, it's always playing the bad guy or a goofy fat guy that's going to fall over and say a bunch of stupid stuff.
Yeah, I've always considered if I was going to act, it'd have to be like a very minor role, like a cameo kind of thing, and it would have to be like an asshole, because I pull that off just fine in real life.
Yeah. I'm always about just trying a little of everything and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you for coming on. Where can people find your stuff, and where can people submit their works for the festivals for next year, if that's a thing?
Yeah, I do some YouTube tutorials, and I put some of my movies up on my YouTube page, which is just Jeff Sanders Films, and sort of a red logo on a black background. If you look me up, and you'll see How to Be a Good Housewife and Shiny Shiny on there. So if you see that channel, that's me. And yeah, I like to do little tutorials about how to show people how to maybe shoot with like a lens that you got at a thrift store, cheap things, and those are still capable of making really good images. And so I try to encourage people to, no matter what their budget, that there's something they can go out and make. And that's what I do on there. And as far as the film festivals, the Desertscape International Film Festival is currently accepting submissions, and it's going to be a great lineup this year. I mean, right out the bat, we've already received some seriously great movies. Horror Fest International. I mean, if you're local at all, you need to come to both of these. And I want to say Kanab Film Festival as well. I want to give Jeff Roth a shout out as well. All three of those festivals are so much fun. Kanab is accepting submissions as well. I'm not associated with them on that kind of level, but it's a great festival to do. Horror Fest should be accepting submissions, though, in the next few months, and you should definitely come to all those.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Man, no, I think it's great. Like I told you before we started recording, I had no idea that you were heavily into festivals. So it was nice seeing that on Facebook, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. He's actually running a festival.
Yeah, I don't talk about my personal life much on that stuff. Plus, sometimes there's like a weird thing about it where it's like, what if they look up Shiny Shiny and they're like, I don't want to enter this guy's festival. It's like Shiny Shiny resembles nothing of what I'm looking for in a movie. I don't expect you to be like me. It's probably not good that you're like me, because that's a bad thing. And so, yeah, I don't always I never like flaunting anything where I'm like, I'm a filmmaker and I'm the greatest filmmaker. Like, no, that's not me. I try helping people as much. I try being a positive source. I want to be the person where if I'm helping you out on something, I want to be the guy that encouraged you to make something, and wasn't that person that tried to cut you down and say, I don't think you have this in you or whatever, which sometimes people can do. Those such words are in different ways. So that's why my Facebook and whatnot, I keep it pleasant.
That's actually probably smart. I don't know if you've noticed that. I'm vocal on there. But.
Most people don't. It's just a personal thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with what you do, because that's what most people do. I just, I don't want to say things and hurt people where they're like, I don't like this guy anymore or whatever. It's like, no, I mean, I don't care where you're coming at me from. As long as you're not like coming at me with like a baseball bat or something. I'm pretty cool with whatever your belief system is or whatever. I'm not.
It's like they show up at the festival and they're like, you said this day 5 months ago.
There is a worry of that sometimes now, though, because sometimes people you'll say something and they'll think like, that's exactly what you believe and only that, and you must you hate all people of religion, or you hate all whoever or whatever. And it's like, that's not true. That's not true at all.
I don't know if you know this, but I think 2020 has shown that people are willing to believe whatever makes them feel comfortable. And I think that's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know if I'm changing. I don't think I'm in the world or anything, but I don't want to add to that.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. I want to be the person that, like encourages everybody, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
It's harder in the world to like people than it is to hate people.
It takes so much effort to hate, and it's tiring after a while. And
it takes a lot of effort to genuinely like people too, because there's always going to be something that somebody does, and you're gonna be like, why? And then you're just gonna think like, that's fine. It's their opinion.
Yep.
It's fine, and unless they're actively hurting somebody, it's okay. Like, there's things I have no tolerance for. I don't agree with child molestation or murder or anything like that, but I don't think anybody I don't think anybody really does. Obviously there's the people that commit it that do, but there's, outside of that, if somebody has a different political belief or religious belief or whatever, it's fine. If they come from a different culture, I love different cultures. That's why I'm part of 2 international film festivals.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Give me some horror movie from the Middle East or whatever, from Turkey or something, or Hungary or whatever. We play them. Like, I watch it. I'm like, that's so cool that's what you guys like. That's what you guys made over there. I'm so glad that you let us be part of it. So.
Yeah, I'd actually be interested in seeing some Turkish horror films or whatever.
Yeah, there's a few. Baskin is a fantastic Turkish horror film.
Baskin?
Baskin.
Is that about a snake?
Almost like Carol Baskin, like Baskin. Very strange, wonderful Turkish horror film. We played one called Parabok, which the interesting thing about that is, like, you can tell Evil Dead 2 and some of the effects of that made its way all the way over to Evil Dead 2, both those first two made its way all the way over there, because there's little film elements that you can tell, oh, that's a Sam Raimi shot they're putting in there. And that's kind of interesting to see how a film language is a global language, and just how important it is to see everything. And then it doesn't have to be horror films. There's some of the great dramas that are coming out right now are from other countries.
Yep.
Korean cinemas, Japanese cinema, Chinese cinema, they're proving, especially Korean cinema, which had a real boost the past 25 or so years, is really proving itself to be special. Indonesian cinema right now is killing it with Joko Anwar and I always butcher the guy's name, Timo, whatever, who made The Night Comes for Us and May the Devil Take You. Yeah, that guy's movies rock.
the Night Comes for Us. If I ever shot an action movie, dude, I would definitely try to base.
It's hardcore. It is like the most simple premise. Like, okay, I betrayed these guys. They're coming to kill me. They're going to kill all my family. Hold your ground. And you're just watching these people in this epic fight for life, and most of them are going down, and just seeing the carnage of that movie, and just the energy of it is, it's so good. But
it's shot beautifully too. Yeah.
Yeah, gorgeous. Yeah. Indonesia's just killing it. The Raid, of course, is British Indonesian, and Joko Anwar's Satan's Slaves is the movie I wanted The Conjuring to be when I watched it initially. I was like, The Conjuring is good, but it's falling into some odd cliches, and it's kind of it's betraying its own film. But Satan's Slaves has a similar setup. But man, when that movie unleashes, it never misses a note.
Damn, I'm going to have to add these to my list.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Satan's Slaves, and what the hell was the one he made after that? Impetigore. Impetigore is really good too.
Impetigore.
Which means hereditary. Or inheritance. Inheritance is what impetigore means.
Now, is anything like Hereditary?
That's the thing. Satan's Slaves has little hereditaryisms in it, and so does Impetigore. But they're also fun. They're more fun than Hereditary. And
whoa! These are fighting words.
Well, no, Hereditary is not fun. It's brutal. Like it's a great movie, but you don't watch it for like joys. Like that movie, that kind of sucks your soul out a little bit by the end of it. Where at the end of Satan's Slaves, I'm like, that was fun. Like,
no, totally. I get what you're saying. I posted a thing on my Twitter today because I saw somebody on my Facebook saying Midsommar is more fucked up than Hereditary, and I was like,
they're both messed up. Like,
yeah, I think Midsommar is definitely a lot more in your face about it. Hereditary is just subtle as fuck until the third act, and then it just goes to like a 180.
Well, yeah, it's hard to top when that poor girl dies in Hereditary. Like, it's a shocking scene.
Yeah, dude, it's in the very beginning. That's like the transition to the second act, essentially.
It's essentially the catalyst of the film, is that event.
Yeah, dude, like that. There's no going back after that.
And you watch it, and it's just like, how could something so horrific happen? And it does. It just, it sucks the soul out of you. And I don't know. I don't love seeing kids get slaughtered all the time. I'm not one for it. So that movie especially hurts, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember I watched that in the theater because they had a special screening because put on by the Utah Film Commission, actually, before it was wide released. But yeah, dude, just the tension in the theater and like the gasp of everybody like holding their breaths. Like I thought it was a fun experience.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's fun to see those things in theater where
I miss theaters.
You just see every little, the director, just every note they're playing, the audience is receiving, and every jump, skip, and whistle in that movie's having an effect on somebody. And Hereditary definitely had that. I saw it in Vegas when I was shooting a convention, and it was in the same hotel I was at. And I just like, when I was done shooting for the day, I was like, okay, I'm gonna 2 hours. I went and watched that, and same response. Everyone in there was like, oh, what's that? For the rest of the movie, they were part of it.
Yeah,
I'm proud of our state for making that movie.
Yeah, I am too, and I'll never forget when Toni Collette's floating in air, right? When it's revealed she's in the very corner.
Yeah,
and because like the way it's revealed, it's like she's hidden in the shadows, and then like her shape slowly, takes form or whatever. But just hearing the gasp, everybody's like,
yeah.
Like, it's just like, I don't know, dude. I fucking miss theaters. Okay, that's the point of this conversation. It's just like,
yeah, it hurts. That was my first thing I loved, and then just seeing them slowly go away over the past few years, and this COVID thing just shooting an arrow right through the heart of it. It hurts. I'm not mad at people for not going to the theater right now, but I miss that interaction. But luckily, those festivals we had, you forget about how special that is. And then when you're part of it and you were in that room with all those people just digging the movies, it's such a special feeling. Yeah. I recommend everybody at some point of their life, see a packed house film,
Oh, absolutely, man.
Go to that festival, that's wait in line, even though it sucked to get in line, once you're there, that's an event.
I agree. I also, before we kind of wrap it up, going on like the packed experience, right? Because I talked about the tower a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. So I watched, let's see, which one came out first? I think it was the house that Jack built, Lars von Trier's controversial film.
Oh yeah. Can he not?
Yeah, they did a director's cut of that for like a one night only, right? And it was sold out. And just hearing people, half the theater was laughing, half the theater was like mortified. I was one of the ones laughing because I thought it was so absurd. And I'm like, dude, he's purposely trying to push boundaries. Like, that's the only reason this film exists, is because he likes to push boundaries, you know?
Oh yeah, that's his thing.
That's his thing. And like, I was laughing at it, and then my friend leaned over and he's like, dude, this is fucked up. And I'm like, it is fucked up, but it's also really funny. Like, it's so absurd.
Yes, it is.
And then I watched Mandy after that, I believe. And that's another one that was sold out, and nobody knew anything about it except that it was metal as fuck from Sundance, right? So
yeah, my friends saw it at Sundance, and I knew all about it in the Cheddar Goblin.
Yeah, well, I didn't know anything about it, so going to that was like sold out, and I didn't know it was going to be kind of I don't know, camp. It's kind of campy, you know. It's definitely not for mainstream audiences, to say the least.
Oh yeah, and it's very theatrical.
Yeah, and watching, and like, there's scenes where it was so badass where like it was dead silent, or it was like absurdly funny because, you know, Nicolas Cage doing what he does best.
Oh yeah, in his underwear, screaming, crying, and then sitting on a toilet, like.
Yeah, and so like, I think the whole tone of the theater was kind of like mixed, where it's like, do we laugh, do we cheer, like what do we do? And then finally people started clapping and just having the time of their lives with the movie. Like, yeah. It made it that much more great.
That's one thing I wish audience film goers would let up on, is it's a horror movie, it has to be scary. Like, why is this being funny right now? It's like, because it is. Just go for the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Just go for the ride. Something can be dramatic and then funny. Like, I just watched this great William Peter Blatty movie called The Ninth Configuration. I'd seen it before, but I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I forgot about how riotously funny, if that was a word, that movie is, and then how the second half just takes a sharp 180, goes the other direction, and it's so dramatic, and then at the end of the movie it tries to be kind of a religious experience, and you're like, I guess it was kind of a religious experience with all that laughing and horrific stuff in it, but so well made. But I could just see an average person watching that right now who kind of wants their movies to stay in line and to just be baffled by it and just, what is going on? This is literally insane. Yeah. And I think Panos Cosmatos he lives by those rules. Mandy I liked significantly better than Beyond the Black Rainbow, but I still appreciated what he did on the previous movie. I just feel like it got a little old. Yeah, it felt like a short film, but it got drug out for about 2 hours, where Mandy still has that slow burn pace going with certain aspects of it, but way more focused. And that Nicolas Cage performance really helped it out.
It did. And it's funny because people are like, well, like when I say it's like one of Nicolas Cage's finest performances, right? And they're like, oh my God.
Nicolas Cage is a great actor.
I know, I agree.
They love to make fun of him, but he's, I can name 10 literally great Nicolas Cage performances easy, and he's probably done 20, 30 of those.
Yeah, well, and like, so The Tower, my favorite experiences have been mostly Nicolas Cage movies, because then after Mandy, I saw his newest one, or not newest, but the one, the Color from Outer Space. I think that's what it's called.
I loved Color from Space, the H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah,
that's a special movie. Richard Stanley deserved that.
Yeah, well, and that's another one where it's just like, holy shit, this is a role made for Nicolas Cage. Like, there's these roles that are just meant for Nicolas Cage. And
who else is going to be like muttering and being angry about alpacas and like and then being a good guy and then a bad guy and then a good guy again, and it's just that was a perfect role for him.
Randomly angry and then like randomly sweet.
Yeah, that movie's messed up, and that kid gets all distorted in that movie. Like, that movie successfully pulls off weird horror where it's so absurd and it's weird, but you are terrified watching it. Like, by the time you see what it's doing to people, it gets under your skin. Ugh. It's like The Thing, where it distorts your body so much. That body horror stuff. Ugh.
Yeah, well, Possessors, and I don't know if have you seen Possessor yet?
I've not seen it yet. Adam and John keep saying it's so good.
Dude, I'm joining their crowd. It is very good. I think about it often still. I've only seen it once, but I kind of want to buy it on Blu-ray just because
I think it's out soon.
Yeah, it's definitely it's interesting because it's a Cronenberg's son who did it, and it's interesting to see how he kind of influenced or got influenced by his dad with the body horror stuff.
Was it Brandon?
Yeah,
Brandon Cronenberg.
Yeah, and it's a cool concept too. It's kind of fun. Yeah, dude. That's a movie I'd recommend you watch that movie at some point. So.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Just kind of waiting to see it pop up. I know it's for VOD right now, but I don't know. I might just buy it. I buy too much stuff.
Yeah, well, and dude, some of the best movies I've seen have just been like impulsively bought without having seen it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I did that with Hell or High Water. I never saw that when it was out, and I just kind of bought it on a whim, and lo and behold, it's a great fucking Western,
Yeah, I mean, you get to the point where you're like, you'll recognize actors or producers or writers, especially directors, and you're just like, oh, that's the guy who made this. I'll just buy it. It's fine. Like, I'd rather just have it than, know, and almost always there's something to admire in it, You don't watch a movie with Bruce Dern and go, oh, I don't know. It's like, no, it's good. Like, Bruce Dern's always good. Kurt Russell's almost always good, Just those actors. Sissy Spacek is one of those actresses that, there's probably going to be a good performance if she's around.
Absolutely. But, okay. Jeff, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. I had a great time.
All right. So check out Jeff's YouTube channel. Check out his festivals. Check out his work. He's a talented guy. I say so myself.
Thank you.
Jeff, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Chaz.
I very much appreciate it, man. So we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Take care.